What's up, guys? Welcome back. Soup season continues, and honestly, I've been putting this one off for way too long. But today is the day I'm going to show you how to make the best damn French onion soup you've ever had in your life. Meet me in the kitchen. Let's make it happen. Alright guys, first things first, we're going to get started with our prep work. The thing about French onion soup, in my opinion, to do it right, it is a little bit labor intensive, but cooking is a labor of love. So I'm going to show you guys a few little shortcuts that you can take. You can use beef broth straight out of the carton if you want to, but if you follow these steps, it's going to be much more flavorful. We got to go ahead and start by prepping our veggies. We also have some bones here, oxtail in pieces that are a little bit too small to serve. I usually save those and freeze those for any time I want to make some stock. One other flavor enhancer that we're going to use is this smoked turkey leg. It's going to add a little bit of smoked flavor to the stock as well. All right, so for our bones, we're just going to hit them with a little bit of olive oil and a pinch of salt. Give them in a 425-degree oven until they're golden brown and roasted nicely. That's going to develop some deep flavor, and then we're going to throw that in our pot to make our stock. So not only are we roasting our beef bones, but we're also going to roast some vegetables that's going to go in the stock as well. So we got some carrots, we got some celery. It's an onion soup, so we don't need to add the onions to this too, but you could if you want to. Carrot, celery, and 1 head of garlic. For the garlic, all I'm going to do is cut right down a quarter. All of that's going on there, but you just want to expose the actual garlic flesh so that it roasts nicely. We're going to cut the end pieces off of the carrots and just kind of roughly chop them. No right or wrong way to do this. We're just stealing the flavor from them. We're not actually serving the vegetables, so whatever feels right is cool. And the same thing for the celery. No need to peel the carrots because, again, we're just roasting them for flavor. And that's about the size I'm going with right there. Same thing for our celery. Get this on a sheet pan, olive oil, salt, into the oven as well. All right, so if you're in need of a good cry, this is the perfect recipe for you. We have 3 pounds of onions here. I'm going to thinly slice them. No right or wrong way to do this. Just make sure they're not too large. That's kind of all you're really looking to achieve here. Relatively consistent. We're going to caramelize them to the best of our ability. But just really, give them a nice thin slice. Set them aside. 3 pounds is what we're using for this recipe. Quick reminder, all the specific measurements and ingredients are listed for you on MrMakeItHappen.com. All right, guys, now time for the most tedious part of the recipe. We need to make caramelized onions, and I mean truly caramelized. It takes some time, but it's worth it. We're gonna go in with 1/2 stick of butter into a heavy pot or Dutch oven, something large enough to hold 3 pounds of onions. Obviously, they're gonna sweat down tremendously, so it's gonna look like too much initially, but once they start to sweat down, they shrink, substantially. So I'm gonna partially melt some of this butter, and then we're just going to get all those onions into the pot. No onion left behind. Get them in there. And then we just need time and patience. Just get in there, move them around occasionally. Make sure they're not burning, but you want them to really caramelize. Couple pro tips to speed that process up is to add a hefty pinch or 2 of salt, maybe up to 1.5 tablespoons, and then a little bit of sugar about half the way through. That'll speed up the caramelization process. Add a little bit more color and some additional flavor. All right, so instead of using water just for additional flavor, we're gonna use some store-bought beef broth. This is also gonna speed up the process. That way we don't have to spend a full 24 hours trying to make beef broth. We're gonna take what the store did for us and doctor it up, make it taste better. You wanna use 50% less sodium or no sodium for this. We're going in with 3 quarts. All right, guys, so once the veggies and the bones are roasted nicely, we're going to add all of that to our beef broth. We're going to save that fat from the oxtail. We're going to add that to a little bit of butter and emulsify it in the sauce or the actual soup at the very last second. It's going to add a tremendous amount of flavor and great mouthfeel. It's going to make the broth taste almost a little bit more thick than just a typical broth-based soup. So that's the goal there. We're gonna go ahead and let this simmer for about an hour or 2, let it reduce. We're gonna season it up. We're gonna add some fresh herbs. We're gonna add a little better than bouillon beef base to amplify the beef flavor and just get this tasting as good as possible. All right, guys, so onions, like most vegetables, are mostly water. So during the caramelization process, as the onions begin to shrink down, you'll notice that there's going to be some liquid in the bottom of your Dutch oven or pot. Once you notice the liquid pooling at the bottom of the Dutch oven, you're getting pretty close to the part where the onions are going to begin caramelizing. What's going to happen now is that liquid or water is going to evaporate, and at that point you'll start to notice that the onions will start getting a darker color. That's because they're releasing the natural sugars that's in the onions, and that's what causes the caramelization. All right, guys, so once you've invested the time to get these beautiful caramelized onions, it's time to finish the job. We got our broth that we semi-homemade, cheated it a little bit, but it's just as good. We'll turn this heat down just a little bit. And we're going in with 2 ounces of bourbon. This is optional, but it does add some flavor. We're gonna cook the alcohol off, totally safe for kids. But if you wanna leave it out, you can. There's also wine in the recipe. Pretty much every French onion soup recipe has wine. But that bourbon's gonna add another element. It's gonna burn off, leaving the flavor behind. At which point we're gonna go ahead and add in our sherry wine and do the same thing. Gonna cook that off too. Just gonna add some additional flavor. And then I added about a 1/4 stick of butter to that reserved beef fat that we had from the oxtail in the oven. We're gonna add that, kind of mix that together. That's gonna add some fat to this dish. It's gonna give it a nice gelatinous mouthfeel, much more pleasant to eat than just like a regular old, brothy soup. So once the wine is cooked off, now at this point, you've successfully made the best French onion soup you probably ever tasted. You want to go ahead and let this simmer another 30 minutes, let all those flavors come together, let the wine cook out a little bit more, and just season it one last time if needed. Taste as you go, adjust the seasoning to your preference, a little fresh cracked pepper, a pinch of salt if it needs it, and then this is going to be perfect. There's 3 components to a good French onion soup. There's the soup, which we just did. Then there's the croutons that got to be delicious too, and then there's the cheese. And that's what we're about to do now. Pop it in the oven, let that cheese melt, and it's going to be a thing of beauty. All right, guys, so for the bread, we're going to go ahead and turn the oven on 425 degrees, melt us a stick of butter, or a half a stick of butter, depending on how much bread you're using, and add this buttery garlic pepper seasoning. You can add whatever seasoning you like. You can add some parsley, some herbs, whatever floats your boat. I just want to get flavor on the bread because you're not really going to see the bread for presentation purposes. So right now, all I care about is the flavor. And this seasoning is going to handle that. Plus the butter. Go ahead and get that tossed and coated on our bread. Get that in the oven at 425 for a few minutes until it's golden brown and beautiful and nice and crispy. And then we're going to use this to top our soup. All right, my friends, it's time for the moment of truth. We're going to go ahead and build this soup the way the good Lord intended. Get it in the broiler. Let that cheese melt beautifully over this buttery, crusty, flavorful bread. Best French onion soup I think I've ever made easily. And I did it just for y'all. All right, so what you want to do is take a ladle. I think I'm losing my voice, so I need this soup more than I thought I would. Take a ladle and fill this up about 3/4 of the way. And then we're going to hit it with some cheese before the bread. We're going to layer it in there. Not a crazy layer, but just a light layer before the bread. Cheese, the Gruyere, and the Parmesan. And then we're going to take our bread. You can break it up if you want to, but just kind of build a little lid for the soup. Don't be shy with the bread. This is one of the 3 components of the soup. It should be soup, cheese, bread. So pretty heavy. I like to think about it like you want to have a bite of bread with almost every bite of soup. And it gives it a little height on the dish too. So this might be a little overkill, but it's YouTube. I got to get you guys to click on the thumbnail. Then we're going to take our Gruyere cheese and just pile it high. This is a soup bowl that could feed 2 people easily. But again, it's going to look nice when we go to take our thumbnail. There you have it, folks. That's going under the broiler until the cheese is melted, brown, bubbly, and beautiful. Then it's time to serve. All right, guys, after the broiling is done and it's brown, bubbly, and beautiful, it's time to go ahead and garnish this up with a little parsley and Parmesan, because why the hell not? We're here for a good time, not a long time. This is the part where I say brace yourself for a trademark money shot. Say it with me, guys. Looking good. The only thing left to do is dig in for the taste test. But before we do that, please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that bell to enable notifications as well. All right, without further ado, it's time to get in here for a bite. Let's try to get a little bit of everything. Oh, man. This is French onion soup right here. You guys got to try this one.